So, fellow survivor, you have apparently decided that you hate yourself and want to get punished by playing the hardest difficulty in the long dark. Interloper is tough and at times frustrating, but if you survive, you can truly call yourself a badass. And don't worry, Zach and the online streaming community is here to help you out. Before starting, this video is aimed at surviving the early game of Interloper. I will release another video on late game Interloper survival soon. Also, these are just my tips for starting an Interloper run, but other players might have different tips or opinions that you could use to get a good run going, so don't be afraid to ask the amazing Long Dark community. The first thing you should know before even trying Interloper is the maps themselves. The Great Bear Island is reportedly larger than Skyrim, so there is a lot of ground to cover. Don't worry though, you don't need to know every detail about every single map, but you do need to know where to warm up and find good loot. When walking around outside, you should know where the nearest shelter is at all times, so that if you get caught in a blizzard or by a sudden wolf attack, you always know where to go.
Where the am I? Yeah, I'm gonna die in a goddamn blizzard. I don't even see where I'm... How did I walk for 8 hours and not get to the end of this god?
You should also have a general idea of where wolves and bears tend to frequent, so you can best avoid them when traveling. So, if you're not completely confident in your surroundings, you might want to play on some lower difficulties first in order to learn the maps, and then try Interloper. Speaking of knowing where to go, in the early game, the most important thing is to keep moving. Loot is scarce on Interloper and you have no weapons, so you should not try to establish a base until after you created the bow. Instead, you should move from location to location continuously in order to maximize loot, stay warm, and loot water from toilets. In particular, you want to look for the hammer so that you can create arrowheads and tools later. In the early game, you want to keep moving and only stay in one place in order to stay warm or to sleep. Focus on moving to and looting warm locations such as buildings so that you can avoid being too cold. I recommend following a route of high-end loot locations towards the forge, so that you are likely to be ready to create tools and arrowheads once you get there. For example, let's say you spawn in Timwolf Mountain and make it to the Mountaineer's hut. A good idea from here is to make your way to Desolation Point and the Riken Forge, but going via all locations that are likely to have loot, including detouring to Mystery Lake and the Ravine, and I'll tell you why later. So, after reaching Pleasant Valley, you should search the plane crash, the farm, the barn, and Signal Hill before heading to Mystery Lake. Just one note, you can of course find great loot on the summit in Timberwolf Mountain, as well as the gold mine in Ash Canyon. But unless you really know what you're doing, I would recommend waiting to go here until later in the game when you are better settled. When moving around in the early game, collect as many cattails as possible. Cattails is the bread and butter at the beginning of an Interloper run. You can find them along any river and freshwater lake. Forlorn Muskeg and Ash Canyon especially has a lot of them, with over 300 in each of the regions. These weigh quite little and can easily be your main source of food until you are able to hunt. As I mentioned in tip 2, you want to keep moving during the early game, and it is wise to plan your route along places that have a lot of cattails. Returning to Pleasant Valley, you want to visit the high-end loot locations using the river when possible, in order to maximize cattail harvest, for example using this route. When you reach Coastal Highway, you want to travel down along the river and get all the cattails you can there. Just be careful about the bear that patrols this area. Securing a source of cattail food makes this next tip even easier, namely to starve yourself and only eat before sleeping. This is because starvation is one of the weakest afflictions in the game. When you are hungry, you only lose about 1% condition per hour, compare this to being thirsty, which is 2% condition loss per hour, or being cold, which is almost 20% condition loss per hour. So, don't get cold. This means that you can save your food for quite a long time without taking any serious damage to your character. In other words, you should not go for the well-fed bonus until you are able to hunt and can secure a larger and renewable food source. Until then, what you want to do is to only eat when sleeping, and you only need to eat enough for your meters to be full while sleeping so that you can recover health. If you want to sleep 10 hours, which is the maximum you can sleep on Interloper, eating just 6 cattails will do it, and then you go hungry until the next night. This way your food can last for a long time, and your health is relatively high. In addition to cattails, you want to grab all the sticks you find. Sure, coal is gold and can really warm you up, but sticks are especially handy in the early game. They are plentiful and act as a good fuel source. They also have a fairly high chance of lighting a fire. You can also break them down for tinder, you can create torches, or build a snow shelter if you need to. In Interloper, it's important to always carry a good amount of wood because you never know when you need to light a fire for warmth, protection, or food. Therefore, grab as many as you can so that you survive and stick around. The flare gun is really useful in the early game for 2 reasons. First of all animals are scared of the gun, so you're a lot safer moving through the world. Remember that Interloper has no rifle or revolver, so the flare gun is your best protection until you make a bow. In addition to scaring off animals, you can also hunt with it. A well-placed shot to the head can bring down a bear. This is especially handy on Interloper because you're going to need those bear hides so that you can craft the bearskin bedroll. On Interloper, you do not spawn with a bedroll when you start the game, so you would need to find one of the ones that spawn in the world. There is only one guaranteed bedroll spawn, and it's in Bleak Inlet in this cave here, but this is quite a dangerous place to visit this early in the game. Even if you were to find a bedroll somewhere in the world, you still want to make the bearskin bedroll as soon as possible because it gives you a lot of warmth and therefore more security in moving around in the world.
Yay! And it gives you, what? I never realized it gives you 12 degrees protection, warmth. Wow, we are a golden.
Until you get a bow, using the flare gun is a great alternative.
Damn, I'm good.
You can find a flare gun in 2 locations. One is at the summit in Timberwolf Mountain, and the other is down the rope climb in the ravine. I recommend getting the ravine flare gun early on if you can, and this is another reason why the previously mentioned travel route via ravine is useful. You need a rope to reach the flare gun in the ravine though. A rope can spawn in this region, but it's best to be safe and grab a rope from Mystery Lake or somewhere else, and then take it with you so you can guarantee that you can climb down. There are invisible death walls around the ravine, so do not try to get down there without a rope. You will instantly die.
What the just happened?
Once you reach the boxcar in the ravine, you will also find a stim and sometimes a hammer, so it's definitely worth going there. Just keep in mind that the flare shells are limited, so use your shots wisely.
How many times do I gotta shoot him?
Outside of dying, your top priority in an interloper run is to create arrowheads. Find the hammer as fast as you can. There are usually about 6 of them around the world. While some of them are found in obscure places, you are likely to find at least one hammer in high-end loot locations such as Signal Hill or Trapper's Cabin. Don't bother looking for it in forges, they will not spawn there on Interloper. Once you have the hammer, you can head straight to a forge and start making arrowheads and tools. The forge in Fallen Muskeg is arguably the best because it is outdoors, meaning your fire will burn longer. Hopefully you have also found a hacksaw that allowed you to cut down some birch and maple saplings on your journeys, but if you didn't, at least now you can make those tools and then start cutting them down in order to make the bow and arrows. Once you have the bow, the toughest part of Interloper is behind you, and you are now ready to start securing more food and crafting supplies for a base.
That'll do.
Just a note, it is possible to survive on Interloper without the bow. I did a run where I had to survive 50 days with no bow and no flare gun. And Kimiota and others have done runs where they only survived on birch tea. So it's not that you can't survive without the bow, it's just that creating the bow makes things a lot easier.
That was some quick thinking.
In order to secure long-term survival, there are 2 skills you should level up as fast as possible. The most important is getting cooking to level 5. This is simply because at level 5 you are immune to parasite infections, meaning it becomes safe to eat wolf meat and bear meat. Until you are level 5, you should not eat predator meat unless you absolutely have to, because getting parasites requires 20 days of healing on Interloper.
But the problem is it's 20 days worth of medication for the parasites. So every day I have to eat at the same time medicine.
In order to level cooking, you want to cook every canned food you find. Pick up as many plants as you can and just cook those reishi, rosehip and birch teas, along with any herbal teas or coffee you might find. You can also level faster by using a cheesy tactic called shredding. This is done by starting a meat harvest and then cancelling, resulting in many small meat bits instead of one large chunk. Cooking is leveled by each item cooked, so doing this will allow you to level the skill faster. However, a lot of players consider this a cheesy mechanic and a bit of an exploit, but whether you use it is completely up to you.
I think it's totally fine to use it. I think it's a great mechanic to use if you want to. If you choose not to use it, you don't have to use it. It's like anything else in the game. It's like my loot tables. It's like online maps. It's like cheesing the fire starting to get it leveled up really quick. If you don't want to use it, you don't have to use it. If you want to use it, it can come in very handy, and you can get a lot of skill ups very quickly by doing it.
The second skill you should improve is Archery and getting this to level 5. This is not because you need the extra damage or reduced bow sway of that level, because even at level 1 Archery, you can easily one-shot a wolf or a deer if you hit them in the head. However, you want to level Archery to 5 for one simple reason. It allows you to crouch while shooting. Crouching severely reduces detection range, allowing you to get close to your prey and getting easier kills. Note that in addition to arrow hits and books, you can also level Archery by making arrows, so don't be shy in your arrow crafting. Thirst is a bigger threat than hunger in the long dark, so you want to make water whenever you can. This is also because fire is a limited resource, at least until you find a mag lens and happen to be on a clear day. In the early game, you can find water in the toilets, but you should cook water whenever you can, so that you are sure that you are never thirsty, especially when sleeping. After getting the bow, you can finally think about establishing a base, and making large amounts of water means that there is one less thing for you to worry about when trying to survive. My final tip on surviving Interloper applies to both early and late game, as well as lower difficulties, namely that you should always carry contingencies in your backpack. What I mean by that is you should always carry supplies on you that could save you in case something unexpected happens.
Oh, really?
Therefore, I highly recommend that you carry the following: at least 4 bandages, 1 antiseptic or 3 old man's beard bandages, 2 antibiotics or reishi tea, 1 emergency stim, and finally, if you can, 2 pieces of coal. The bandages will protect you from blood loss following an attack, and having 4 of them means you can safely use one for sprains if you need to. so always carry bandages in case of animal attacks, as well as antiseptic for wound infections. The antibiotic is mostly there just in case you were to get food poisoning, which is primarily an early game risk until you reach cooking level 5. The emergency stim is your get out of jail free card. Some people use this just to climb long rope climbs, which of course is fine, but I would avoid doing this because the stims are really powerful. Using one restores 15% of your health instantly and allows you to sprint continuously for about 60 seconds. Should you find yourself low on health, you can pop a stim and run to safety. Finally, the coal is a very strong fuel source and provides about 20 degrees warmth per lump. So, carrying a couple of these means you can safely warm up should you get caught in a blizzard. One piece of coal is practically worth as much as 20 sticks in terms of warmth, so if you find some, you should keep a few on you. They are most commonly found inside caves and mines, but you can also find a few of them on frozen rivers, such as the Coastal Highway River, as well as around forges. And that's it for this video. I hope these tips will help you survive on Interloper, but if you were to die, don't worry about it. The Long Dark is all about learning from your deaths. So if you died, just try to understand why you died and then do better next time.
Let's do this! Oh no! Oh no! Oh my god, I ran on the wires!
If you like this video, I will be releasing another video on late game Interloper soon. Thank you as always to my amazing art director Elencia. I would like to say thank you to the many streamers who helped provide footage that was used in this video. These are all great streamers, you should check them out, they're a lot of fun and you'll learn a lot from them. Stay safe out there, survivors. Buffet.